Scientists have spent decades comparing the intelligence of different animals: dogs versus chimpanzees, ravens and octopus. So, which one is smarter? Well, that question doesn't make sense. The tests look scientific. The conclusions look clear. But there's a problem. Most of those tests were never properly validated to measure what they claim to measure. One of the most famous batteries of cognitive tests in animal science is called the primate cognition test battery, which evaluates 6 cognition skills divided into 2 domains: physical and social cognition. The concept is simple. Give different species the same cognitive tasks. Measure who scores higher. Compare the results. Same test. Different animals. Fair comparison. Except it isn't. Let me show you what I mean with the scientific examples. In a study by Kirchhofer in 2012, dogs and chimpanzees were given the same task: follow a human pointing gesture to find hidden food. Dogs were significantly better. So, are dogs more intelligent than chimpanzees? Of course not. Dogs co-evolved with humans for roughly 15,000 years. Reading our social cues is literally what they were selected for. It's a specialized skill for a very specific ecological niche. Chimpanzees didn't evolve in that context, so they don't perform as well, not because they're less intelligent, but because the test was measuring something very specific to the human-dog relationship. But here's where it gets interesting. A 2009 study by Waber and Hare took the same 2 species and gave them a social task that did not involve cooperative communication with humans. Chimpanzees were significantly better. Dogs' social skills are highly specialized. They are exceptional at reading human cooperative signals. But in social contexts that don't involve that specific dynamic, chimpanzees are more skilled. The label changes. The animal doesn't. In 2007, Herman and colleagues compared children of 2.5 years old, chimpanzees and orangutans across dozens of cognitive tasks. Apes performed similarly to children in physical problem solving, but were outperformed in social tasks. The interpretation? Humans evolved specialized social cognition. That's probably true. But here's what the study didn't tell you. Every single task was designed by humans, using human logic, human assumptions, human priorities. What counts as a correct answer, as solving the problem, is already defined from our perspective. And a 2020 review by Schubiger and colleagues found that in many standard cognitive tests, tiny changes in design produced completely different results. So the test design, not the animal's intelligence, was controlling the outcome. I now want to tell you a personal experience. Is about a Gentoo penguin. When I was working as an animal trainer, we needed to train a group of penguins to voluntarily put their head into an anesthesia cone for veterinary procedures. Completely routine for most species. Some individuals required more training, some less, but all of them learned to voluntarily put their beak in the cone and stay still. Except one. We tried every approach we knew. The penguin refused, froze, turned away, session after session, for months. And we started questioning the animal. Is it not intelligent enough? Does it not understand? So we decided to put him in a different training group with a completely different task. Touch a target. A simple disc the penguin had to touch with its beak. That penguin became the fastest learner in the entire group. Same animal, same trainer, same rewards, different task, completely different result. The anesthesia cone required the penguin to move its head into an enclosed space it couldn't see through. For a prey animal, a species whose survival depends on constant visual awareness, that is not a learning failure. That is a deeply rational response to a perceived threat. The target, on the other hand, made complete sense in the penguin's world. Approach, touch, get reward. Clear, visible, safe. No ecological conflict. The penguin wasn't less intelligent. The task was the problem, and the personality of each individual can affect the outcomes. In 2020, a study by Pika and colleagues tested ravens on the same battery used to test great apes. They found cognitive skills in 4 months old. Ravens appeared similar to those of adult apes in physical and social cognition. However, they found difficulties in the spatial skills section of the test, which is surprising since ravens hide thousands of food caches and retrieve them months later. The likely explanation? Ravens live in highly competitive social groups. In the lab, with a human controlling the food, they may have perceived the situation as competitive, changing the way they engage. As the researcher Wolfgang Köhler wrote a century ago, the success of intelligence tests will be more likely endangered by the person conducting the experiment than by the animal. Here is the scale of the problem. In 2019, a consortium of researchers called Many Primates reviewed 574 studies on primate cognition published in the last 5 years. The median sample size across all of them? 7 animals. We are drawing conclusions about the evolution of intelligence, conclusions that appear in textbooks, in documentaries, in science journalism, from an average of 7 individuals. More than 85% of primate species have never been studied at all. Chimpanzees and rhesus macaques together represent more than half of all published research. Moreover, only 2% of studies attempted any form of replication. The foundations of what we claim to know about animal intelligence are far more fragile than the confident conclusions suggest. So, let's go back to the original question. Which animal is more intelligent? The dog, the chimpanzee, or the raven? That question assumes intelligence is a single axis, more or less, better or worse. But everything we've seen points in the opposite direction. Dogs are exceptional at reading human cooperative intent. Chimpanzees are more skilled in broader social reasoning. Ravens match great apes in quantitative and causal cognition, but need the right ecological context to demonstrate it. And a Gentoo penguin can break every training record for the right task and fail completely for the wrong one. When we compare these animals on the same human-designed scale, we're not measuring intelligence. We're measuring similarity to us. So, we need to approach this differently. Instead of asking which animal is smarter, we need to ask, what problems does this animal need to solve to survive? And suddenly, every species starts to make sense, not as more or less intelligent than us, but as perfectly adapted to their own world. So the next time someone asks you which animal is the smartest, you'll know that's the wrong question. The right question is, smart enough for what? And once you start asking that question, the animal you thought you understood becomes completely different. Because there are behaviors happening around us every day that most people misread entirely. Not because the animals are mysterious. Because nobody taught us the right language to read them. That's what this channel is for.